U.S. Navy has unleashed a relentless force that leaves smugglers with nowhere to hide. For years, elite crews have honed tactics and precision strikes designed to hunt narcotics vessels across international waters. Now, operations have escalated, and the results are brutal. Smuggling boats are intercepted, destroyed, and crews neutralized before they can escape. There is no warning, no mercy, only calculated, overwhelming force. Can traffickers survive this new era of naval dominance? Join us as we reveal how the U.S. Navy punishes smugglers at sea. On Tuesday, August 2, 2025, the U.S. military carried out a strike on a cartel speedboat from Venezuela, reportedly transporting illegal narcotics, eliminating all 11 people on board. This operation was the first known action following the recent deployment of U.S. warships to the Southern Caribbean. Video footage shared by U.S. authorities shows overhead drone imagery of the speedboat exploding and catching fire. The crew has been identified as members of Tren de Aragua, a Venezuelan gang officially designated as a terrorist group by the U.S. earlier this year. U.S. officials allege that the gang operates under the influence of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, a claim that Venezuelan authorities deny. The Pentagon has not released specifics about the strike, including the type or quantity of narcotics aboard, or the exact method used to destroy the vessel. The use of lethal force against a suspected drug smuggling boat, rather than attempting to seize it or apprehend its crew, is highly unusual and mirrors tactics typically reserved for military operations against militant groups. Venezuelan authorities, however, maintain that Tren de Aragua was dismantled during a 2023 prison raid and is no longer active in their country. U.S. officials indicated that the targeted narcotics were likely destined for other Caribbean nations, such as Trinidad. This strike shows an intensified U.S. offensive against drug cartels and trafficking networks across the region. The Tuesday strike is just the surface of the pressure cartel smugglers have been facing from the U.S. Navy. On August 11, 2025, the U.S. military disrupted a suspected drug smuggling operation in the Eastern Pacific, intercepting a vessel carrying a substantial load of cocaine. According to a Navy release, a U.S. Coast Guard law enforcement detachment aboard the Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyer Samson seized 1,296 pounds of contraband during a maritime interdiction operation. The operation began when the Samson, patrolling a known drug trafficking corridor, identified a suspicious vessel displaying classic indicators of smuggling, including an excess of fuel barrels and packages visible on deck. In response, the destroyer deployed an MH-60R Seahawk helicopter from Helicopter Maritime Strike Squadron 49, known as the Scorpions, along with a rigid-hull inflatable boat to intercept the fleeing vessel. The smugglers attempted to escape, discarding contraband into the ocean while fleeing at high speed. U.S. military personnel fired warning shots, but the vessel ignored them. Acting under Coast Guard direction, the helicopter crew disabled the vessel without injuring any suspects, allowing two boarding teams, including members of U.S. Coast Guard Law Enforcement Detachment 105, to secure 12 bales of cocaine. Two individuals were taken into custody and transferred to the Samson. The smuggling vessel, damaged and sinking, was not towed in accordance with operational safety protocols. Despite how big the interception was, this haul was not the largest seized by the Samson. On July 10th, the destroyer intercepted approximately 3,439 pounds of cocaine, 380 miles southwest of Acapulco, Mexico. Just 2 weeks later, on August 26th, the U.S. Coast Guard cutter Hamilton offloaded over 76,000 pounds of illegal drugs at Port Everglades, Florida, marking the largest drug offload in Coast Guard history. This included 61,740 pounds of cocaine and 14,400 pounds of marijuana, valued at $473 million. This offload represented the first major milestone of Operation Pacific Viper, a historic partnership between the U.S. Coast Guard and Navy, designed to intercept drugs and human smuggling operations in the Eastern Pacific before they reach American shores. During the operation, Coast Guard forces conducted 19 interdictions in international waters across the Eastern Pacific Ocean and Caribbean Sea, demonstrating overwhelming force in defense of the homeland. The scale of these seizures is staggering, With a lethal dose of cocaine as low as 1.2 grams, the amount offloaded by Hamilton could potentially harm more than 23 million people. Despite how elite the U.S. forces have been, the cartels have also evolved, developing highly innovative ways to evade detection, most notably through the use of narco submarines. These semi- or fully submersible vessels are custom-built to transport narcotics from South America into Mexico, the United States, and Central America, allowing traffickers to operate beneath the radar of even the most advanced enforcement operations. There are three main types of narco submarines. The most common is the LPV, or low-profile vessel, which sits just above the waterline and can carry a modest load of up to 10 tons of contraband. Then the semi-submersibles are slightly more sophisticated and travel mostly submerged, using a snorkel to recycle fresh air and carry loads similar to LPVs. These vessels are rarely detected. The rarest type is the fully submersible submarine. In 2000, Colombian authorities discovered a 100-foot half-built model near Bogota. This vessel, equipped with GPS and capable of diving more than 9 meters beneath the ocean surface, could carry up to 200 tons of narcotics. The evolution of narco submarines began in the 1980s with the go-fast boats, capable of speeds up to 90 miles per hour, transporting hundreds of millions of dollars of narcotics through the Caribbean into the United States. However, radar advancements and counter-tactics by the U.S. Coast Guard and other law enforcement agencies forced traffickers to innovate. In 1988, authorities discovered an early, rudimentary submarine off Florida, towed behind what appeared to be a conventional fishing vessel. This primitive design laid the groundwork for the highly sophisticated submarines used today. By 2006, the U.S. Coast Guard seized one of the first operational narco subs, dubbed Bigfoot because its existence had long been rumored but rarely observed. This vessel was intercepted roughly 90 nautical miles southwest of Costa Rica. Only 3 subs were detected that year, but by 2009, the number of narco subs had surged to over 60, with estimates suggesting as much as 1 ton of cocaine being shipped daily. Construction of these submarines takes place in dense jungles along Colombia's Pacific coast, offering cover from U.S. satellites and local authorities. Each vessel costs around $2 million to build and takes up to a year to complete. Construction requires thousands of pounds of materials, a skilled labor force, and housing facilities for workers. Measuring up to 100 feet in length and built from wood, fiberglass, and chibla to reduce radar visibility, the vessels can carry up to 10 tons of contraband, valued at $400 million on the street. Crew members and builders are considered expendable by the cartels because of the extreme risk involved in the operation. When narco sub-crews are captured, local authorities such as the Colombian Navy, Coast Guard, or other law enforcement agencies immediately detain them. Interceptions often occur far from land, requiring transport to the nearest port or naval base for processing. Conditions aboard the submarines are extremely harsh. Extreme heat, poor ventilation, dehydration, and exposure to toxic gases are common. Immediate medical care is often necessary to stabilize crews before legal proceedings begin. Following stabilization, the crews are interrogated to extract critical intelligence about trafficking routes, cartel networks, and the locations of other submarines or smuggling operations. This information is vital for dismantling broader trafficking networks and preventing future operations. Subsequent prosecutions are handled under anti-narcotics laws, with sentences in Colombia or Mexico ranging from 10 to 20 years. In cases involving international trafficking, suspects may be extradited to the United States, where federal law imposes decades-long sentences and significant fines. Beyond legal repercussions, narco sub-operators face extreme risk from the cartels themselves. Surviving capture does not guarantee safety, as captured individuals may be targeted for retaliation or permanently removed from operations. Some may cooperate with authorities in exchange for reduced sentences, providing intelligence on routes or cartel hierarchies, but cooperation does not eliminate personal risk. Away from the ocean, the U.S. military is also striking deep into cartel territory, targeting the heart of their operations. In mid-February, the New York Times revealed a bombshell report. The CIA had expanded drone flights over Mexican territory to monitor 6 cartel groups officially designated as foreign terrorist organizations. According to unnamed CIA officials, The intelligence gathered is sent directly to Mexican authorities, with the primary mission of locating drug production facilities. Effectively, the government is creating a hit list, passing critical information to Mexican Marines. Officials noted that such intelligence operations existed under previous administrations, but have now been dramatically intensified. Until this revelation, the drone program had never been disclosed to the public. The drones, mostly MQ-9 Reapers capable of carrying missile payloads, are, according to the CIA, currently used exclusively for surveillance. Meanwhile, manned U.S. spy plane missions near the border have surged from once a month to 18 flights in just 10 days. Yet surveillance alone is not enough. U.S. troops are now officially deployed south of the border, operating inside Mexico. In mid-February, a team of 11 Green Berets landed at a Mexican naval base. This deployment was publicly approved by the Mexican Senate Commission, permitting U.S. forces to operate within Mexican territory. Officially, their mission is to train Mexican naval special forces in unconventional warfare and counter-cartel operations. However, this deployment also represents a major intelligence sharing initiative. Human intelligence cannot always move comfortably through traditional chains of command, particularly if local leadership is unreliable. These training missions are therefore a two-way street. The Green Berets are also tasked with limiting the flow of U.S.-sourced firearms into Mexico. Each year, roughly 250,000 weapons are smuggled across the border, with 70% of Mexico's gun-related crimes traced back to U.S. firearms. Following high-level discussions between the two nations, the U.S. government will now coordinate directly with Mexican authorities to prevent the illegal entry of these weapons, marking a historic level of bilateral cooperation. This deployment of U.S. Special Forces signals a clear level of collaboration between the two governments. While joint missions are not unprecedented, what sets this operation apart is the unusually public nature of its announcement, including official Special Forces press releases. It appears the CIA intentionally revealed details about the expanded drone flights rather than allowing the information to leak. The report reads less like it is aimed at the general public and more like it is intended for cartel leadership. So far, Mexican authorities have deployed more than 2,500 troops to key hotspots along the border. A massive surge of National Guard soldiers has been sent to 13 cities, stretching from Tijuana to Matamoros. During these operations, troops uncovered advanced tunnel networks used for smuggling both weapons and narcotics. These forces have spread across some of the most violent border cities in what officials describe as a deliberate show of force. The deployment has coincided with a dramatic 94% drop in migrant border crossings compared to last year. This increased media coverage has also introduced a rarely mentioned but crucial actor, the U.S. military's Northern Command, or NORTHCOM. Responsible for the United States, Mexico, and Canada, NORTHCOM typically receives little attention, unlike CENTCOM, PACOM, or EUCOM until now. In February, NORTHCOM issued a press release announcing the establishment of Task Force 140, headquartered near the border. The task force, staffed with 140 intelligence personnel, analyzes information collected from surveillance flights and other sources. Analysts suggest that intelligence gathered by drones, spy planes, and special forces will flow directly to NORTHCOM, where it is processed into actionable plans. At the center of this operation is General Gregory Gilead, head of Northern Command. Speaking before the Senate, he stated that their mission is to provide intelligence targeting cartel networks responsible for producing and distributing fentanyl across the border. Interestingly, since NORTHCOM's creation in 2002, its commanders have almost always come from the Air Force or Navy. The question is, why? General Gilead, for example, has a background as a senior air battle manager with more than 1,300 hours flying in an RC-13-5 surveillance aircraft. Airborne ISR is what drives him every day. Part of the reason for this focus is that the region's operations center mainly on air surveillance, missiles, and covert actions. Historically, this is why so many Air Force and Navy generals have led the command. It is not expected to involve a traditional ground war. By contrast, CENTCOM has almost always been led by an Army or Marine general with a Deputy Air Force general because CENTCOM's operations traditionally involve land-based conflicts. This distinction highlights the operational focus along the U.S.-Mexico border. surgical air surveillance, and, potentially, precise airstrikes. Some of these spy planes can be tracked using open-source data from Flight 24, which displays the paths of surveillance aircraft. These planes are equipped with powerful radar systems and cameras capable of zooming in to extreme detail. Not that anyone would want to, but the capability exists. The aircraft are outfitted with signals intelligence sensors, allowing them to intercept phone communications and eavesdrop on cartel networks. If the cartels communicate using emojis, these flights can decode those messages. On board, each mission carries roughly 30 linguists, intelligence specialists, and code breakers. The RC-13-5 functions like an intelligence vacuum, collecting all signals in the region like a hungry hippo. However, to comply with legal limits, the aircraft typically remain beyond 12 nautical miles from the Mexican coastline, sticking to international waters and keeping transponders active. That said, there may have been undisclosed flights operating without transponders, the details of which remain unknown to the public. The most unusual thing in this operation is the deployment of the U-2 spy plane, a relic from the 1950s Cold War. This aircraft monitors cartel activity from 70,000 feet above the ground and can loiter on station for up to 12 hours, a capability never before seen in this region. Its long-range presence allows constant observation of critical areas without interruption. The upgraded U-2s are equipped with a Vader pod, a sophisticated sensor that combines synthetic aperture radar with multispectral imaging cameras. For instance, chemical plumes from hidden drug labs appear as striking red signals on multispectral imagery compared to a standard visual image. To a trained analyst, these images provide a near-perfect target indication. Over the decades, cartels have become adept at hiding from traditional surveillance. They have used extreme methods to remain off the grid while still exploiting communication networks. Most notably, they built their own parallel cell phone networks spanning nearly all of northern Mexico. This system was pioneered by the Los Zetas cartel, founded by former Mexican Special Forces soldiers trained by U.S. Special Forces. Around 2009, after several leaders were captured using cell data, the Zetas developed this alternative network. Unlike insurgents in Iraq or the Taliban, the Zetas forcibly kidnapped engineers and technicians, compelling them under threat of death to construct a parallel mobile system, a brutal strategy known as gun-to-the-head diplomacy. The cartel then expanded this into a profitable business, installing parasite antennas on commercial cell towers and intimidating technicians into compliance. Local populations were extorted to pay $50 a month, generating roughly $150,000 monthly in revenue. This explains the critical role of U.S. high-tech spy planes. They provide capabilities that Mexican authorities previously lacked, allowing effective surveillance of cartels operating off the grid. The cartel's response has been immediate. In northeastern Mexico, two rival gangs, the Metros and the Scorpions, have agreed to pause their turf war and move underground. Leadership has retreated further inland from the border and Gulf Coast regions as a direct reaction to these surveillance operations. By forcing them to relocate, authorities achieve a strategic advantage. The effects are already measurable. A human smuggler, who charges migrants between $18,000 and $40,000 depending on their origin in Latin America or Asia, reported to NBC that his business had dropped by 80% since January. The pressure from these combined operations is clearly disrupting cartel activities and shifting the balance of power along the border. Still, these developments raise serious questions about how extensive the cooperation between U.S. and Mexican authorities is. The coordination of surveillance flights remains a topic of debate within the open-source intelligence community, leaving analysts and observers speculating about the true scope of the operations. There are clues, however. Mexico's Defense Secretary Sandoval revealed that the Mexican government cannot rule out espionage by the U.S. military because they don't know what they're doing, because not all aspects of the program have been fully disclosed to Mexican authorities. At the same time, official government statements assert that no violations of Mexican airspace have occurred, adding another layer of ambiguity. Observers note that this uncertainty may be intentional. Mexico's president acknowledged the operations as part of a little campaign, signaling a deliberate strategy of ambiguity. Both nations appear to be sending a clear message to the cartels. You are being watched, but the full extent of the surveillance and coordination remains undisclosed. This careful balance ensures pressure on cartel operations while maintaining operational security for U.S. and Mexican forces. Thanks for watching. Before you go, click the link on your screen to check out another video. See you there.